With all due respect to the appellant, what you are witnessing here is actually something we've seen before on a project that was appealed in the city of Clear Lake, and there were multiple requests for continuation. And I guess I would just like to remind the board that based on our understanding that there has been legal notice given by the county in accordance with the California Government Code, and that we feel that the appellant, having made contact with the county, is fully aware of this hearing. And it does not make sense to us that the board would, take action to continue a matter that we are here on today, that the appellant had full opportunity and really should have been here.
Okay.
And has an opportunity to present whatever information via Zoom. And we just hope the board will take action today to decide this appeal. It's been 3 years that we've been in this process, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knoll. With that, I'll close public input, bring it back to the board, so that way we can decide how we're going to move forward. There is a request of continuance, and then also the
Mr. Chair, I wanted to call to your attention, there's a hand up in the Zoom room,
yes.
too. You have closed.
Donna Mikewitz. Okay, well, I closed it, but I'll open it back up. Donna, if you can unmute, you have 2 minutes.
Good morning, and thank you for letting me speak. I was the person, this is Donna Makowitz from Redbud Audubon. I was the person that just sent a text and phoned David Hughes because I was concerned that maybe something had happened, wondering why he was not in the courtroom. And since no one else is speaking on this, I'd just like to bring attention to the biological study that was done in 2019 on June 11th. If you're looking to find
no, we can, if you can stop there.
Land, you might want to not do it in June, but do a
okay.
spring survey.
Thank you for your comment.
Also, the water reports were from 2004, 2006, 2011. It would be nice to see if well studies could be done, like in the...
We can silence her, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, she hasn't testified, so we can't take that. I do see another hand up. And I'd open it up for Ms. Mikewitz. So, Mr. Johnson, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Hi, good morning, Board of Supervisors. I appreciate you allowing me to speak. I just would like to thank Ms. Grant for what she has clarified on the kind of the rules here. I do agree with everything she said. The process has been followed. But also, if the board is so inclined to proceed with the hearing, if Mr. Hughes is available by text, the board might actually inquire whether he can make an appearance and present today, now that he is aware that the hearing is proceeding. So I just wanted to offer that to the board as well.
Thank you. And that was basically stated by Mr. Knoll, too. Thank you for that. I do see another phone, 4847. They have their hand up. This will be the last one that I take before we come back. And if you haven't been sworn in on this item, then we're going to have to probably cut it short. Actually, that person put their hand down, so it looks like we're done with that. So we'll close public input, bring it back to the board, and I wanted to see if the request for continuance or if we were going to move forward. What action shall we take from there? Ms. Grant, did you have any more?
I just wanted to remind the board that the choice is yours here. You are certainly allowed to grant a continuance from an appellant who's asking for one if that's the determination of your board. If you make a determination that timely and adequate legal notice was properly given, you can certainly move forward if you choose to do that instead.
Vice Chair Scott?
I believe the timely and adequate notice has been given, and I think we need to move forward today.
With that, is there any action to, Supervisor Simon?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Vice Chair Scott, too, that from what I understand and what's been reported today, that notice was given an opportunity, I think, prepared to move forward. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Supervisor Simon.
I agree.
Okay. With that, would anybody like to entertain a motion?
I have questions regarding the project. If we're ready to move on to discuss the project.
Then we'll go back to, okay. So,
So, Mr. Chair, perhaps you could give staff an opportunity to see if we can, I was just provided Mr. Yu's cell phone number, can see if I can get him in Zoom.
yes. How much time do you think that'll take? We could probably do something in the middle of 5 minutes.
There's a appointment.
Yeah, let's go to that. So while we're waiting for that, we'll put this on pause just for 1 second and take action on a non-timed item briefly. We have 7.3, consideration of the following advisory boards: Lucerne Area Town Hall, and that's a person. Let me see if I can pull this up here. And the application is for Danielle Santaprieto. And so, yeah. Any comments, questions, concerns? No? So I'll open up for public input. I don't see anybody in the chambers, anybody online. I don't see any hands up. Bring it back to the board for action.
And Mr. Chair, if you're okay with my approving your appointment to Lucerne Town Hall, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve Danielle Santopietro.
Second?
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7.3 is finished. And it looks like we're right back to, and we'll go back to our paused item, 6.7.
So Mr. Hughes is going to join by Zoom. If you'll give me just a couple minutes to get the Zoom link to him.
And so, Ms. Grant, so I closed public input, so I'll probably need to reopen it, considering we're going to be going forward with more testimony and more discussion on this item, correct?
Oh, yes, I assumed you just closed public input as to the continuance issue.
Right, the continuance issue. So as for the appeal, we will be reopening that when the time comes.
That's right. And the appellant, of course, will still have the opportunity to present, notwithstanding any time limit.
Right.
As the department and the developer, project owner has done.
Okay.
Do calendars?
We can do calendars. We can do calendars if that's amenable to the rest of the board. Who would like to start? Who's ready? You ready?
I'm ready. I can
Vice
start.
Chair Scott, go ahead.
Tomorrow I have the Ag Advisory Committee meeting at 10 o'clock. And then agenda review at 3. I might be a little late to that because I have a doctor's appointment right before that. And then I will be attending the spring social for the Kelseyville Women in Agriculture at 5:30 in Kelseyville tomorrow. 9 o'clock on the 14th, Resilient Lake County. I also have at 9 o'clock the HCAH Advisory Board, so I'll be toggling back and forth through that. And then the JPA meeting at 10. And at 3 p.m., the Mental Health Advisory Board that goes till 5. On Monday, I will be attending Juan Ortega's church service, and then back here on Tuesday.
All right. Supervisor Simon?
Yeah, board meeting looks like all day today, and then have a meeting with PG&E tomorrow afternoon. Thursday, have the Middletown Area Town Hall. Friday, weekly planning meeting. This weekend, obviously, is, I got it right, is Easter on Sunday, so we'll be enjoying that. And then Monday, have the Risk Reduction Authority meeting, meeting with Carol in the morning, and then back here on Tuesday for the meeting on the 19th.
All right, Supervisor Pyska?
Tomorrow morning, I have the Ag Advisory Committee meeting in the morning, and then I will be at the California Women in Ag Social in the evening. Thursday morning at Fire Safe Council, then I have my meeting with PG&E in the afternoon. And then the 15th, Friday, I have my weekly planning meeting with the Home Hardening Group. And then I will not be here next week for spring break.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Pyska. Supervisor Sabatier?
I'll keep it brief. With the city of Clear Lake, I have a road committee meeting. They're looking to get a $10 or $12 million loan to do a whole bunch of roads all at once rather than doing year by year. Going to join our Canacti Unified School District board meeting later that evening. Have a North Coast EMS JPA meeting on Thursday. Meeting with the Real Estate Association on Friday, and then just getting prepared for our meeting on Monday.
All right.
A lot of stuff in between.
All right, so following this meeting, if we get out of here by that time, I'm going to go to the Upper Lake Community Council meeting. That's at 5:30 in Upper Lake. Tomorrow there is a listening session for Drought Executive Order Action 9 for well permitting that was invited from RCRC, so I'll be attending that with agenda review at 3 p.m. with CAO Hutchinson. Thursday, we'll be doing a review on the North Shore with the fire department on a specific project he's working on. The Lucerne Area Town Hall will be in the evening at 6 p.m. This weekend, of course, just attending as many Easter parties on the North Shore that I can, or events, to make sure that, you know, I don't want to wear the bunny outfit, but I'll attend. But, and then on Monday, let's see, I know I have something else here. CAO meeting, and then, yeah, no, that's then back here for the Board of Supervisors on, no, I'm sorry, I'm meeting with Water Resources, that's what I knew, I'm meeting with them at 3 p.m. on Monday, so, and then back to the board here on Tuesday. So with that, the calendars have been conducted. Are we ready to come back to 6.7?
Yes, and Mr. Hughes is in the Zoom now.
Mr. Hughes, can you hear me? This is Chair Crandall.
He needs to unmute.
Yes, if you can unmute your microphone. He's working on it, I know that. There we go.
Hello?
Hi.
Yep, you're there.
Hi.
All right, Mr. Hughes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm on now.
Can we do the swearing in again?
Yes. Mr. Hughes, we're going to need to swear you in briefly before we go ahead and take your testimony in regards to this appeal. And so Johanna here will be conducting that with you.
Thank you.
And if anybody else in the room would desire to be sworn in, now's the time.
Okay. With your right hand raised, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Johanna. Mr. Hughes, everybody has been able to give their presentation so far on this. Staff has done so, and so has the party that is conducting the permit. So if there's anything you'd like to add or would like to present, now's your opportunity.
Okay, I guess, first of all, we were appealing on two issues. The first being water, our concerns for water in the Burns Valley Basin. And the second was growing of marijuana within 100 feet or so of the city limits. I guess I need to, it's going to be hard for me to give a presentation because I knew nothing about this hearing. I did not receive anything in the mail. I did not receive anything via email, text, or anything else. So I'm in my vehicle and I get a call from Mr. Flora asking me if I knew about the hearing. I did not. We, as a neighborhood, we've got about 35 neighbors in the Burns Valley area below this project that have banded together. We put together $5,000 to have an engineering report done by EBA Engineering. I received that report on April 8th. I sent it out to all of the neighborhood for comments back, and I'm still waiting for the comments to come back as the neighborhood reviews it. Once I got the comments back, I was going to contact staff and find out where I send this and see if I could find out when our hearing might be. So I've been kind of caught unaware. I have a hydrology report here based on a review of the applicant's hydrology reports that were done. And again, I wanted to speak on the issue of growing within 1,000 feet of the city limits. There was already there used to be a kennel on Augulin Canyon Road adjacent to 2050 Augulin Canyon, and she had obvious concerns about a grow being that close to her property. She did check with the veterinarian, and what the vet basically told her was, from a health standpoint, it probably would not affect the animals. From an odor standpoint, when marijuanas emit odors, it could get in the coats of the animals. Customers could smell the marijuana when they drive up to pick up their animal or deliver their animal, and she felt that would and could adversely impact her business. That kennel was probably there for 25 or 30 years. Since that time, the property's been purchased, I believe, by affiliated cannabis persons, and so the kennel's no longer there. So we wanted to, as a neighborhood, argue the growing within 1,000 feet, and then I need the opportunity to send our hydrology review to staff so that they can review it. And again, our concern is not only do we have a drought, but we feel there's a direct correlation between water usage upstream from us and impacting our water in the Burns Valley Basin. Again, I'm not prepared to make a presentation, but my understanding is the Burns Valley Basin water is recharged through rainwater. And to us, if rainwater hits the surface and then drains into the basin, it drains into our aquifer. Most of the wells in the Burns Valley Basin are anywhere from 50 to maybe 75 feet. Mine is about 65. And the basin or the aquifer below that pumps a lot more water, but we feel if rainwater is what recharges the basin, it must flow into our aquifer and then from our aquifer into the lower aquifer. And if they're using water, it could affect the amount of water our aquifer has available. And that's what we were trying to show a little bit of with our hydrology review that we had done. Again, I have it sitting here on my desk, but it hasn't been sent to anybody except the neighbors for comment. So that's why I was hoping I could get some kind of a continuance. I'm not sure, what the applicant has in mind. I know we appealed. I believe this applicant was also on 2185 Augulin Canyon, which is within the city limits. We appealed that one. We did not win that appeal, but we also didn't have a professional hydrogeologist working for us at that time. And the day after, basically, the city granted the applicant, denied our appeal. The property's been put on the market for sale. So, I don't know what he has in mind for 2050 Augulin Canyon, but we'd like the opportunity to send our engineering hydrologist report and again, have an opportunity to get organized and argue the growing within the 1,000 feet of the city limits.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
And let me, again, I want to emphasize, I have not received a thing about this hearing, by email, by registered mail, by any mail. So I don't know where the notice was sent to me, but I have not received it. I certainly would have been there had I known.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hughes.
I'd like to add one more thing.
Okay, go for it.
Real quick, we, during the planning commission hearing, there were 4 commissioners present, so there wasn't a 5th to be a tiebreaker. And while the planning commission was deliberating, one of the commissioners actually mentioned changing his vote so that it would not end in a tie. He said he would hate to see a tie vote, basically deny the project. So he was going to change his vote. So it turned out to be a 3-to-1 vote. And I was always puzzled as to why he would change his vote, because I feel like he was supporting our side, but didn't want to see it end in a tie. So I don't know what his thinking was, but I thought that was interesting that he would make a comment like that and then vote to allow the project to proceed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hughes. That's noted. I can't speak as to why the commissioner would do that, but I read the minutes as well and seen, I think that was stated as well. So with that, is there any questions for Mr. Hughes from the board?
Go ahead.
Supervisor Sabatier?
I was going to ask if we can double check on the address.
Yep.
Yes, Mr. Hughes, what is your address on file? The mailing address.
I'm not sure what I used with the appeal, but I normally would use my mailing address at my office, which would be 14330 Lakeshore Drive. Oh, I used P.O., I'm sorry, on the app, no, that's the city. Okay, I'm looking at my file. Well, normally I would use 14330 Lakeshore Drive as my business in Clear Lake. With the city appeal that we filed, I used my P.O. box, excuse me, my P.O. box 3490 in Clear Lake.
And that's the one that we have on file, sir.
Okay, and I've received nothing. Like I said, if I had received something about a hearing, I would be there.
All right.
Yeah, okay, I see my appeals form now. It does say P.O. Box 3490.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hughes. So Supervisor Sabatier, did you have anything else on that, or?
For the moment,
Supervisor Simon?
No, I was going to ask the same
Same
question.
question? Yeah. All right. No? With that, would I open it up to, I think I would open it up to Supervisor Sabatier.
How do you get rid of his background noise?
Hey, David, if it's possible to mute
Yeah,
yourself.
he goes, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. I'm just thinking about the potential funds that were spent by the local community members to try and get a report that I want to believe both sides. We did send something. Did it get lost in the mail and not get received to that specific box? That's possible. I know I always hand out some mail to my neighbors. But at the same time, having spent money to create an argument and not hearing that argument also, I'm kind of struggling on that as well. I just wanted to at least put it out there in case that changes the discussion. I'd hate to ignore the fact that community members did spend money and potentially did not receive. I take it Mr. Hughes is showing us the
How many
hydrology.
pages is it?
But anyways,
Yes, I think
Yeah,
he
how
did.
many pages is that report?
Mr. Hughes, how many pages is that report that you're showing us?
What I have, excuse me, what I have so far is 7 pages. But again, they were asking for comment back, and I was waiting to get, like, it's dated the 8th. So today's the 12th. Like I said, I sent it to the neighborhood, and I'm waiting for comment back from them to give comment back to EBA Engineering. And then, like I said, once I got comment back, I was going to contact the county and find out where to send this report and when our hearing might be. So, like I have no idea what happened to the notice, but like I said, if I had received a notice, I would be there.
She could sign her name. It would.
Sure, you have
Yeah, Vice Chair Scott, sorry.
And I think for myself, looking at what the appellant has put down as reasons for wanting to have this denied, one is because it's in the sphere of influence for the city of Clear Lake, and we have a letter from the city of Clear Lake clearly stating that they do not have an issue with this, so that kind of voids that point. And the second point, that there was no issue when hops was being grown there, and hops takes more water. So it's almost like it's a bias against cannabis with the water usage, because there was more water being used when hops was being grown there. So.
Can I argue that, please? Hello?
Yes, what is your comment?
Okay, number one on the, now I'm trying to remember, I'm thinking while I'm talking. She just made 2 points. One was, I just want to say one thing. When the city council, did we go back to the city council a second time to affirm that they didn't have a problem growing within 100 feet of the city limits?
Mr. Hughes, if you don't mind, I need to stop you. I've just been notified that on the staff has looked at the labels and had found that Mr. Hughes' name is not within the labels and more than likely has not been notified. So with that, we're going to need to continue this item.
Thank you.
CAO Hutchinson, would you like to add to that, or no? Okay.
That's the correct action.
Okay.
To continue.
Supervisor Sabatier?
I have some clarifying questions about the presentation that I'd like to still ask, if that's appropriate, since everyone is here.
We're going to have to probably redo the whole thing.
Yeah, we're going to have to continue it, so we'll come back and, yeah.
I figured I might as well try.
All right. Ms. Grant?
I think that because there is apparently, staff has confirmed that if Mr. Hughes, as the appellant, was not duly notified, and Mr. Hughes, as the appellant, is saying he didn't receive notice, at this point, we don't have evidence that he was duly notified and simply failed to show up. So he is entitled to this process. I realize it can be inconvenient for other people, but notice to the appellant would have been a crucible issue here. So I would suggest you not take up further proceedings at this time and just reset the matter.
Okay.
Excellent, and that's what we'll do. Mr. Knoll, did you have something very brief that you'd like to state?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I just have to question the issue of the California Government Code requirement for public notice that is mandated to go out in the case of the county to property owners within 725 feet or whatever the number is. That's the required notice that needs to go out. The notice to the appellant, just like a notice to the applicant, is more of a courtesy. It's a form of communication that is, typically performed by county staff in the processing of an application. And to my knowledge, it is not a mandatory notice. And quite frankly, communications between the county and applicants isn't always the greatest. I guess I'm just really questioning whether or not the appellant was entitled to legal notice, like public notice to surrounding property owners.
Supervisor Pyska?
The appellant paid for this. And we've discovered that he wasn't notified duly, so I think we're going to postpone it. And I'm sorry if you have a problem with that, and if it inconveniences you, but that is our process, and that's what we're going to stand by.
So what we'll do is we'll continue this to a later date. I think we need to ensure that Mr. Hughes is properly notified of a specific date. Can we set that date now, or we shall set this date now? So,
That was rhetorical.
Mr. Knoll, do you have a preference? We'll schedule a date together with Mr. Hughes right now as well. So, what's that looking like?
So, Johanna, I have my list of things that are in line for upcoming agendas. Mr. Chair, do you want to look like 2 weeks out, 4 weeks out, something like that? You want to give us some idea of your thoughts?
Proper notification time.
Yeah, just as long.
Okay, so then probably a minimum of 3 weeks out to make sure the notices go out again. So then that would push us up to May 3rd or later. There are some things on the May 3rd agenda, but probably at this point, looking like there's still room for an appeal. Johanna, unless you have something I'm not thinking of.
I've noticed something for 10:30 on May 3rd, but any other time would work.
May
And so
3rd.
that day, we're anticipating an update from the Risk Reduction Authority, a wildfire proclamation, a tree mortality update, Fish and Wildlife Prosecutor of the Year Award. So it does appear that there would be room on the 5-3 agenda. The 5-10 agenda also looks good.
So, Supervisor Sabatier?
I would suggest the earlier the better.
So the 3rd, it looks like the 3rd is probably what we're okay with. Is that amenable to you, Mr. Knoll? May 3rd? Yes. And Mr. Hughes, if you're online, can you notify us if you understand that May 3rd will be when we bring this back?
Yeah, that's what I'm understanding.
Okay.
I would have preferred the 10th, but that's fine.
We're going to go ahead with the 3rd, sir, if at all possible. So with that, we're going to continue this, what time would it be? 11. So we're going to continue this to May 3rd at 11 o'clock to continue this item of public hearing and appeal. So with that.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion or anything of that nature? Yes, so we'll need a motion for that.
So moved.
Second?
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This item is moved to May 3rd at 11 a.m. With that, we'll move on to our 6.8, our 11 o'clock. Discussion of cannabis tax reform, and B, consideration of resolution amending cannabis cultivation tax due dates. And I will give the floor to Carol Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Patrick Sullivan, our tax administrator, is going to present this item to you today, and he's going to use Zoom so he can show you spreadsheets as you deem fit and advance some slides. So I want to thank Patrick for his continuing work on this. This is in follow-up to the discussion we had with your board on March 8th.
Morning, Board. I'm just going to run through the brief history of what got us here and lay out what's before you today. Just to recall, in January, your board considered multiple topics related to cannabis tax. You indicated you want to suspend the annual rate increase subject to the Consumer Price Index and also consider postponement of the tax due dates. Previously, a resolution was implemented changing the due date for the second installment of 2021's cannabis tax to May 15th, and that waived the applicable late payment penalties until then. On March 8th, your board considered additional options. One of the primary discussion points was changing the taxable area from the cultivation area to the more restrictive canopy area. That results in about a 15% reduction And your board gave direction at that time to do that, and the way to permanently adjust that is through ordinance. Also at that time, your board considered different payment due dates for the future, both a further extension of the 2021 second installment and new due dates going forward that would be set later for each year of cultivation. So today we've returned with a resolution that would adjust that second installment due date from the 2021 tax year to October 31st, changing that May 15th date to the 31st of October, giving cultivators further time to pay. The second part of the resolution changes the new due dates going forward. This would be starting with the 2022 tax year. The new due dates suggested in the resolution are January 1st and May 1st, with penalties attached 30 days later. So that essentially means January 30th and May 30th would become the dates where cultivators could pay without penalty going forward. This was satisfying or hopefully seeking to help alleviate the concern about taxes being due before product had been sold. By pushing taxes for the current year, their due date into the following year, and allowing time for that process to take place. Your board had further considered rate reductions in your last meeting. We did present a staff PowerPoint that walked through some of those different calculations and figures. The difference in this meeting, we are also looking at relief for 2021, which was raised in the last meeting. But since our last presentation, local industry members have brought to our attention that they are having difficulty planning their business operations without more certainty in what their taxable basis is going to be. Because of the structure of our cannabis tax ordinance, the moment they begin to take any steps towards cultivation, which many growers are looking to do this month or in May, once they've taken steps in furtherance of those cultivation efforts, that tax is imposed. And right now, they don't know what that tax is going to be. Your board considered different measures that may offer relief, but it's not been set yet. So what their concern is that when they plant, they don't know what their tax bill will become unless they have an answer in advance. One of the other points that was raised last time was that the state is looking at adjusting their tax framework. There are multiple bills still in progress that may reduce the tax rate and particularly eliminate the cultivation tax, which in our last presentation was raised that this is the primary tax that impacts our local community here. It can often be over 80% of the tax burden associated with government cultivation taxes. But the problem that's becoming clear is that the state reforms are potentially not going to come in time to make a difference for this tax year for local industry members. Cultivators would be having to decide whether to plant without potentially the ability to operate under a new state framework. And that would still trigger those higher tax bills, still result in the difficulties that existed last year. So it's unlikely there will be a significant change at the state level before the end of the year, which is why we wanted to bring back these options for relief at the local level in the meantime. What staff has raised is, in their proposal, is offering relief for last tax year of 50% as a temporary reduction. In most cases, this would essentially mean the second installment is not due. Then as well for 2022, there would be a 50% reduction proposed. And I'll just highlight this last piece, which is another element of concern that was raised was authorizing a temporary change or a more immediate change from cultivation area to canopy area. Because an ordinance is not yet complete, cultivators are still facing a tax bill that would, or a tax basis that would theoretically be generated off cultivation area rather than canopy area. So we were looking at certain solutions that may offer more immediate certainty. One idea was a resolution that could temporarily use canopy area this year as a basis while a more complete tax ordinance is drafted. And that's something else we want to bring forward for your board's consideration. I have the PowerPoint presentation from your last meeting with a lot of the tables and figures. If your board wishes, I can run through those again. I have other data available if there are questions, for instance, about how much total revenue we've brought in, what the impacts would be if we want to go through that more specifically. Generally, staff looked at these reductions in their proposal as a way that if we could maintain the programs that are in place, all of the allocations of spending that your board has actually given to this point that has been assigned to particular uses. And even with these cuts, we could still maintain that. Staff's position is that if we were to go past these reductions, it could begin to impact services. We certainly would be eating into whatever stabilization or reserve we've developed. So just balancing these factors, that's how staff came up with this proposed reduction. So if your board wishes, I'm happy to revisit any of those tables if that's helpful in your deliberations.
Thank you, Patrick. Are there any questions for Patrick? No. Supervisor Pyska.
So with the reduction for 2021, would that second payment be a credit or a refund for people that have already made those payments?
So there's been about $1.2 million worth of payments made as part of that second installment. So anyone that paid that second installment, yes, it could sit as a credit. And my understanding is that's probably what many would choose to do. But there could be situations, for instance, if someone has ceased cultivating where they may want that in the form of a refund. So once that, if that reduction were to be put in place, there is the potential that some of that could go out as actual refunds.
Okay. And I would appreciate looking at that data again.
Okay. Just a moment and I can bring that up. So again, this was just the highlights of the ordinance that allow these changes to be considered by your board. Changing the taxable area from cultivation area to canopy provides that initial 15% reduction on average by site. As we go through these, this was just highlighting how site by site it can be a radical difference in terms of what the effect is of changing cultivation to canopy because of the structure of each site. Some sites are getting a small reduction, approximately 7%. Others are getting larger reductions, 27%, 45%. It all depends on how that site's laid out. So I just wanted to highlight again that as a baseline before we look at the further reductions. The due dates being extended out. Okay, so this was an example of different sites, how they would be impacted by these reductions. With a 50% reduction between canopy, between the change to canopy and the temporary reduction in the tax rate, that reduction can be magnified. So it's going to feel more like 50% for a lot of the sites involved. This is where we get to, Supervisor Pyska, your question about revenue and what the impacts are. With canopy tax, using the rough data that was available from CDD, this is what the projected amount would be. I just wanted to highlight again that each year we have had many cultivators say they don't wish to use their whole area, that we're often going through reductions in terms of the actual area that's used. We expect that to continue. We have had inquiries on that already. So this would be the high end of what's possible off the data that we have available right now.
Is that for 2021 or 2022?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is going forward. Let me get to 2021. About 4.7 million of what was paid this last year was for the first installment of the 2021 tax. Approximately, 4.7 million total was paid. on 2021 taxes, and approximately 1.2 million of that was from the second installment. So that's where the refund would come out of, the potential for a refund. Like we said, many have indicated they'd want to have that as a credit, but we would have to consider giving out refunds as requested. So 1.2 million is what's been paid so far, and that's out of about 16 million in total in cannabis tax that's been collected. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that as we extend out the due dates into next year, that would be the next time that we'd see a larger amount of money. October 31st would be the next time that we'd receive any installments of cultivation tax, but it would not be of significance, especially if there's the 50% reduction that your board's considering. So 16 million that we've received so far, that number would not essentially change much until January of next year.
Supervisor Sabatier, you had a question.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to hear from the industry today. I feel that January just creates the same problem. I want to offer it again. I get it that too many changes requires it to go back to the public, and I think that at the very latest, November 2024, we need to bring it back to the public for whatever changes it is that we are making. Because obviously there needs to be some changes, because this is either zero industry or some industry. So we have to make some changes, but I think it's respectful to put it back for the public to vote on. But I think it also would help the public to see how it works with some of those changes. And I'm just putting it back out there that I think that looking at a gross receipt is the appropriate way, because January, I don't know how many of these growers are selling their stuff by January. Are they still trimming? Are they still processing? So asking in October and January, I don't know that there's a huge difference. I think there's opportunity, but I don't know that there's a huge difference. And again, we're taxing something that hasn't been sold, and we should understand the market that selling right now is not exactly coming off the shelf at a high speed. So I just think it's continuing the same problem, but just pushing it further on down the pike. I'm okay with the 50% somewhat. I think it's fair for what is happening in the market, but at the same time, I'd love to see if we can maybe meet halfway, where some people really, they knew the market was looking pretty grim and still move forward knowing what the taxes were, and now are asking for help. So I'd offer maybe 60% rather than 50%, but I'll be okay if the rest of the board moves forward with 50. But I think the gross receipts is just the way to go. The amount of wasted time, both from Mr. Sullivan and our staff, trying to figure out canopy, trying to figure out cultivation. We're still going to have to sit there and try to figure out what the exact measurement is. Did you pay us correctly? Gross receipts, we do that with Airbnbs. We do that with our hotels, and I think it's a process that we should implement what's already tried and true. And if we have any inkling of thoughts that we don't trust the industry, then why are we even having this conversation at all? Let's just shut it down. I want to trust the industry and treat them like a business, and I think the gross receipts is the way to go, because that way, if they sell, we get taxes. Same exact process as anyone else that pays their taxes. So those are some of my thoughts right now. But I appreciate the conversation.
All right. Any other supervisors? Pat, did you have anything else to add before I open it up to public comment?
No, just that I'm happy to take any further questions as your board may have them.
All right, and with that, I'm going to just set a quick reminder that we're going to hold the public comment period to 2 minutes rather than 3.
Can I just add one other thing?
Yes.
We're not talking about gross receipts today, and that's not something that we can do today. So it's probably not something that we should have in the comments. It just stays strictly what we're talking about on the agenda.
I thought it was tax reform on the agenda.
Well, okay, but the changes that we can make is the 50% reduction or that reduction, but we're not at that place where we're going to be doing the gross receipts changes.
I'm offering it as an alternative to what's being offered. I don't think we could only speak to the 50%. I think that it's, in my opinion, a conversation about reduction of taxes and seeing what's right.
It's not something that we're going to act on today, though.
Ms. Grant?
It does, however, fall within the agenda item.
It does?
Yeah.
Okay. With that, we'll open it to public comment. I have some folks in the chambers. Please state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, my name's Chris Jennings. Bruno hit all the nails on the head with this one. I feel like this is the best option we have available because it's our only option we have available presented to us. I also kind of feel like government side, cannabis side, we're at a meeting ground, and I think when we have something along the lines of 50%, 25%, all these tax weird things, rewrite everything up, I think that this goes to show that we're all very hopeful that the market's going to bounce back. The market's not going to bounce back. This is where we're at. We're stuck here. And I also kind of feel like when we're asking only 50% of a tax reduction, it's almost like we all just met for the first time. We're trying to like feel each other out and kind of be like, walk down the middle and be like, okay, well, maybe they're cool with this. Maybe they're cool with that. But the truth is, like, we don't need a 50% reduction. What we should be doing is probably suspending all our taxes for this year. I'd love to say form a committee to figure out like the best possible outcome to do this, but that just takes time and money and energy that we don't have and the time we don't have. We should definitely go back to the gross receipts. That's the only way, not go back, go to gross receipts. That's the only way it's gonna work. What happens when we have another monsoon season and 15 years from now and we all get wiped out again? We gotta pay 50% of our taxes, like it's just not fair when it comes down to it. We shouldn't be paying fines of 25% or whatever these fines are. We're considered ag. The ag people don't get paid like fines like that. It's already bad enough we're gonna put a lien on our property and take our property if we don't pay our taxes, let alone would be able to grow the following year if we don't pay our taxes. So I think these fines and fees that we get hit with is just ridiculous, but really we need to go to gross receipts because you're either selling weed or not selling weed. Your numbers show you didn't collect almost $12 million is what I'm reading by your taxes. People's not selling weed. I'm not selling weed. I own Lakeside Herbal Solutions. Our sales are down a substantial amount from last year. We need real reform.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Richard Durham. When Proposition 64 was written, it was done in the dark. Today we know better. We've taxed the farmer to abject poverty. Prices are high, prices were high, supply was low. Today things have changed and there's an oversupply of cannabis. Until things change in the state and federal level, we'll continue to have supply issues. I implore the Board of Supervisors to consider the fact that nobody had an idea of how the market would evolve. Current tax rate is unsustainable. We need relief and we need it now. We definitely should not have to pay for the cultivation area. That's bathrooms, parking, processing rooms. That's just regressive. Canopy is what the state licenses, and that's what we should be taxed on. Please consider 15 cents per square canopy foot. Either that or let us pay on taxes at point of sale or gross receipts. No other industry is taxed without a sale being completed. This is all evolving. Please don't destroy the hard work that has been done over the past years. Please side with growing Lake County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durham.
Good morning, Chair Crandall and Supervisors. My name is Sarah Bodner, and I'm Policy Advisor to the Lake County Cannabis Alliance.
I want to start by saying a truly sincere thank you to CAO Hutchinson and Patrick, who spent a lot of time having real dialogue with the industry, understanding how the tax structure affects the farming practices on the ground. And thank you for bringing forward this proposal today. We're super eager to have a decision made. I mean, I think Patrick laid it out very clearly. It's impossible as a business owner to head into another farming season and not know what your debt or your taxes are going to be. In any other industry, that could stop you from operating at all. Even going to the grocery store and not knowing how much money to have to spend on groceries until you get, or what things are going to cost till you get to the checkout line. And that's really where we're at. There's so much uncertainty in every direction. We could have filled the boardroom today because this issue is so imperative. But we wanted to be efficient also and unified as an industry. To prepare for today, we circulated a petition and got over 140 signatures on it supporting our tax ask. So we have two very clear things we are asking the board to take action on today based on this proposal. The first is a 50% tax reduction for 2021, so that we have certainty around what we owe or do not owe as we head into a new year. And the second is that we formalize this decision around canopy only. You've heard the cases for it, and you understand the disparity between how Lake County has been taxing versus every other jurisdiction in the state. And that having that certainty as a starting point is so important, so that we know how we can plant, where we can put our plants this year. Beyond that, we support all consideration of additional tax reform and relief. Like, everything that's been said today is a good idea to consider, and we understand that the board is going to have this ongoing discussion. So we would really hope to walk away today with those two decisions made. First, a 50% tax reduction and canopy only. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, board. My name is Kristen. I'm from Magic Meadow Farms. Thank you all for your work and coming here today to listen to us. Yesterday,
Your last name?
Callahan? Kristen Callahan. I would just like to support the board today. Thank you, Bruno, for everything that you're bringing to the table about gross sales tax receipt. Thank you, Sarah, for the board and the LCCA's effort in tax relief. I would like to present the board with a book that I gave to the Assembly, Cecilia office yesterday. This is a clear example of what is needed for this board to understand the supply chain in California cannabis, especially in regards to the least common denominator, craft cannabis in California. This is a journey through my farm's story. I can only speak for my farm, and I'd really love if the board would take some time to review what it's like to go through the supply chain, including invoices, metric, and various other articles along my journey. I think it's a really wonderful thing to share your experience, strength, and hope. It's the only way that we can really identify the problems and move forward. I support tax relief for cannabis farmers, and especially the least common denominator, family farms, who will be extinct if we can't make decisions based on the reality of what the industry is facing. Thank you. And one final thing I'd like to read, if I could just take one time, it's one page. So I want to keep everybody on the same page from the state to the, I want to be transparent. This document I gave to Senator Dodd's office yesterday. I'd like to, can I please read it?
Well, you can submit it, because your time's probably coming up real quick, but I'll let you.
I would really like to read this, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll allow it.
Thank you for the opportunity to hear us. Farmers are the foundation of our world. Proposition 64 created inequities in their distribution model. Cannabis farmers deserve the same opportunities to bring their farm to the consumer on similar platforms as craft beer and wineries. A direct marketing model reduces carbon footprint on the cannabis cultivator. Solution? Cannabis cultivators deserve the right of an equitable format for processing, packaging, and holding their product for direct marketing. A CSA pilot program consisting of, but not limited to, a co-op association to distribution, i.e. B Corp buy right model. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next time, submit that beforehand, and we'll have it and say, refer to my letter. That'll help us too.
I will probably never do this again. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Next.
Hi, Board. My name is Tyler Mitchell from Kelseyville. I'm a little bit, just like to say that if we're not free to talk about tax reform in all ways, would we have to completely reset and figure out what the origin of government is? Because government is here to protect our freedoms. And if we're not free to discuss something, then what are we doing here?
Well, what we're talking about today is a short-term reduction, and whether or not we go forward with that is the conversation. We can talk about gross receipts and other taxation methods in the long run, but that's not something that we can adopt today because our staff hasn't developed that strategy. There's so many unknowns. That's something that needs to be thoughtfully and strategically laid out and possibly put back to the voters. That's why I say, just to temper expectations, that's not something that we can truly adopt today because we haven't built for that.
I understand it just says tax reform. And so when the Board of Supervisors says that we can't discuss tax reform, it just really feels like we're not here to protect our freedom to be able to discuss that.
Well, I think it's more of a time constraint. We've got so much on our agenda today. We have a really long day, so I was just hoping we could keep the conversation focused on what we can accomplish today.
And so, Ms. Grant, please.
As I already stated, tax reform is going to include commentary. Supervisor Pyska is right, you can't take action on it today because it's not included on the agenda that way. But within your 2-minute time frame, tax reform issues of any kind can be legitimately discussed. I've already said that.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Linda Bryant. I'm a newly approved county cannabis permit recipient as well as a state licensed approval recipient, District 5. I wrote out 2 pages so that I could speak quickly when I heard it got changed from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. I'm going to ad lib. I'm here to speak in favor of permanently changing the taxation of cannabis projects from a tax on cultivation area to canopy area. I believe when the original ordinances were created, there was not given a consideration of what that would mean today. In my case, I very specifically in my application was requested to project in the future what my usage of my cultivation area was going to be. And that includes things that I'm not going to be doing this year, probably next year, and the year after. The most equitable method, I believe, that should be adopted today is a conversion from cultivation area to canopy area, which makes all of our projects even, equitable, and fair. I am in incredibly strong support and favor with all that Supervisor Sabatier has mentioned in regards to receipt taxation. But to your point, for approval today, now, I am innumerably supporting 50% reduction, but also the permanent conversion from taxation on cultivation to canopy area. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you all so much for all of your dedicated time and energy trying to sort through this proposition that was dropped in all of our laps that has proven to be incredibly challenging to sort through. As the state continues to try to figure out what they're going to do, we're stuck doing the same thing. And I just feel like as a cannabis operator myself, I own and operate with my husband, Noble Gardens. We're a very small farm. Our maximum will be 15,000 square feet. Right now, we've been stuck at 5,000.
Yes, can we have your name for the record?
Patricia Lanier.
Okay, thank you.
So we've been stuck at 5,000 square feet because we will not move forward with additional canopy until the market supports additional canopy growth. So with that in mind, I think that it's really important to take into consideration and look at how much of what has been grown in the County of Lake has actually been sold at this point. Before we even determine whether or not we're going to tax farmers next year, we should be looking to offer relief for a market that has collapsed. 50% reduction right now, beautiful. Thank you so much. Any help you can give would be greatly appreciated. But as we move forward, we're talking about how to pursue taxing something that is literally, we're operating at a negative. How can you tax us on anything at this point? There's nothing. There's nothing to tax. Nothing's been sold. And what has been sold hasn't been collected on because there's a predatory relationship going on between distributors and farmers right now. That needs to be examined. There needs to be more regulation in that regard. Please look at it. Ask these questions of farmers. What has your experience been participating in the supply chain? Because it is horrendous. It's criminal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of the board and county staff. My name is Nara Dalbaka. I live in Hidden Valley Lake, and I'm just here to thank you all for taking this seriously and listening to these farmers. Just want to say, as much as you can do today, as permanently as you can do it, to give some ability for the farmers and cannabis businesses that are operating legally in this county to plan for their future and move forward. But we really appreciate you all considering this and your support of the industry. We're very happy to be here. So, thanks.
Thank you.
I got pushed up here by Jennifer. My name is Mary Draper, and first of all, I want to say thank you very much for taking a look at this and making the consideration. The staff did a lot of work in preparing this, and it's greatly appreciated. I don't agree that people knew that this fall was going to happen this year. I don't think they prepared for it. I don't think there was any way they could have known it. We all knew that the prices were going to come down, but this quickly and this drastically, I don't think anybody was prepared for it. I think we're looking at a lot of people that have lost a lot of money as a result, because when they first made their plans, they were expecting it to sell $800 a pound maybe, and that's not what happened. I think that we also need to look at this group of people that next year they can plan for a drastic reduction. They can do their budget that way. But also, if we take a look at this in a micro level for the community, for the county, our sales tax went up, what, $5 million? I think that this has a lot to do with that. I think these people have supported the buying cars, getting your cars repaired, having housekeepers, the lumber stores, the grocery stores, the doctors, the dentist, hairdresser. They have added so much to the economy in this county, and it is given back. It's not just the cannabis tax that the county has received, but it's also the impact of their business that has shown up in your sales tax. It's shown up in the helping of your other local community businesses in having a better business. And I ask that you reduce their last year's tax to 50%, because I think they drastically need that to go forward for next year. And by the way, I am a distributor, and it really hurts my feelings when people talk about distributors like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may offer a correction, we didn't increase our sales tax by $5 million. I think we may have gotten close to $5 million in total.
Oh, I thought it was an increase.
All right. Thank you for that. Next.
Good morning, Jennifer Smith, LCCA. Here to reiterate most of what you've heard. You're all in receipt of the LCCA letter. We are very appreciative of the time that's been given to this topic over the last few weeks and over the last year. This isn't anything new. We've been trying to address this for a while. I'm going to reiterate what 140 people have signed on in agreement with the LCCA board. We are here today for some answers. We are here today to support the staff report of 50% reduction for the 2021 tax bill, 50% reduction for 2022, and to switch to a canopy-only tax. That canopy-only tax makes us competitive with every other market in the state. It also, the reduction in tax rate makes us more competitive with the rest of the state. These are the items that we would appreciate your acceptance of today, with the note that we do look forward to permanent tax reform, that we work towards that in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there someone else that has, okay, I see one person coming up.
Well, at the risk of saying the same thing 15 times, I'll keep it short and sweet. One thing that I would like to point out.
What's your name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael Wagner. Pleasure to see everybody again. Along with the 50% tax and gross receipts and that whole dialogue, I think the immediate change for the 50% would be within keeping with the change in the market. But with that, take into consideration that this market's going to continue to change. And so you have a moving target. And while we talk about these finite or, forever rules that we're talking about 50% or 35%, whatever it might be, leaving yourself some ability to make a change, which may be, like Bruno's brought up, the gross receipts. And like Jessica pointed out, that's not what we're getting to right now today. Maybe that would be the proper thing to put in front of the voters who brought all this about. Do they want to make it based on gross receipts? With that, the fluctuations in the market, what we're looking at are things outside of our control and outside of our realm. When we see a crash in the market like this, it was because a lot of black market was going on. Astronomical numbers of black market work was coming in, and that floods the market and eventually causes this downward effect where when the black market is taken care of, there will be a rise again. So leaving it based on something like gross receipts where the monies can come up in as time goes on, to leave the flexibility for that money to change or move up as the market comes up. With that, I think taking into consideration the over-regulation or maybe the over-taxation of the white market creates and solidifies the black market. The black market is a huge aspect to everything that goes on, and when you have tons and tons coming out of Southern Oregon and landing in Northern California or California in general, we should reinforce the white market by helping the white market, and that will take care of the black market and stabilize our market.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else with public comment in the chambers. I'll bring it to the Zoom room, and it looks like we have 5 people. 2, 4, yes. And so if you can unmute Randy Wilk, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Randy Wilk, and I'm from Clear Lake, Oak Hillside. And I'm opposed to this proposition, and specifically to a specific tax reform, when we should be talking about other tax reforms like the other gentleman had mentioned. Many residents are suffering from the economic hardships due to COVID and yearly wildfire, causing more to become homeless in the last several years. We would wonder why Lake County would sponsor agenda item 6.8 and would give only breaks to questionable business practices of cannabis operations with poor business models, but not to normal businesses and hardworking county residents. For example, many folks really need a break on property taxes and penalties when they occur them, when they have been under economic duress from that COVID and the wildfires causing many more to become homeless. It does not make sense with the cannabis business tax relief at this moment, when the county should focus primarily on the majority of hardworking residents making an honest living. That's my comment.
Thank you. Next, yes.
I just want to make a correction. We're talking about taxation for a legal market, a legal industry with hardworking people that are right here in this room.
Thank you for adding that.
I know I'm outnumbered on this.
Next, we have
some of this is not
Randy.
correct.
Thank you, Randy. Your 2 minutes is up. Next, we have Spencer Andrews. If you can unmute, and you have 2 minutes. All right, Spencer, you're having a hard time with that, so we'll come back to you. Eddie Fernandez, if you can unmute.
Yes, hello, board. Eddie Fernandez, Clear Lake. I'm a cannabis farmer myself, and I am total agreements with Mr. Bruno and some of the members there that we should be switching to gross receipts. It's very hard to charge someone money and them not be able to sell their product and expect them to come up with all this money. It's a lot of money, and I personally can speak on the fact that I put millions into my farm. I am a small farmer. I put my whole savings into it, and I never expected this crash, or honestly, I would have never bought this farm. If I would have known that Sungrown was going to have an issue in selling, I wouldn't have even got into it. So, I went into it with the hopes of, the American dream to, make money and help my family and put my kids through college, but it certainly has gone the other way. Yeah, sure, we expect it to happen at some point, but I didn't expect it to happen this quickly my first year there. And I will say, I think gross receipts is the only way, but for me personally, the way you guys are explaining this, how there's different ways or people being charged are gonna get a different break on the change. Like, for example, the cultivation area for me, I'm being charged an egregious amount. I have 5 acres of canopy. Yeah, I get a bill for $600,000. It's absurd, it's a lot of money. And if you guys cut it in half, that's still $300,000. And what I'm trying to say is, if it was just canopy in that area, I would only be paying about $200,000, because if you were charging me $1 a foot on 5 acres, it's about $215,000 to $220,000. Yeah, obviously the cultivation area, I just think it's wrong, because like you guys stated, everyone's being charged a little bit differently. It's not a level playing field in my eye, where with the canopy area, it's flatly allowed and everyone's being charged the same. So, yeah, 50% certainly will help. 50% certainly will help, but yeah, you're charging me for where my bathrooms are, my roads. It doesn't make any sense.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
Okay.
Your 2 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Michael Colbruno, if you can unmute, you have 2 minutes. It looks like he's struggling with that. We'll go ahead and move on to phone 6205, if you can unmute.
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead then, Mr. Colbruno.
Okay,
And then 6205, you're next.
Michael Colbruno, Ghost Dance Ranch in Lower Lake, District 1. And I also want to echo the comments of just thanking staff, because they did take the time to come out and understand, the taxable area and why canopy makes sense. And I do support the recommendations today of reducing that. One way I think everyone should look at this is a conversation with the legal, licensed, and willingly taxed industry. And it is a partnership between the county and the growers. And the best way to, on your end, from the county to help the industry, is to do these tax reductions, which are on the table today, and to continue the long-term discussion that Bruno raised as well, I think, on the gross receipts tax, because many of us we have another license in the queue, and we are planning for next year, which is new revenue for the county, I might add, and I saw there's a long list of potential licensees in the queue. And so that's all new revenue coming your way, and I think people are going to make the decision based on what you do today. And if you do take this action to canopy and lowering the rate, I thought I heard Bruno say 60%, and I think that is something I always like to talk about, the Emerald Triangle becoming the Emerald Diamond, and Lake County being put in that. And it's important that we're competitive with the other counties around us, and I think today is a huge step in that direction. And once again, I just want to express my absolute gratitude to everyone for taking this up today. Thank you.
Thank you. Phone 6205, if you could state your name for the record and unmute. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, this is Bart Levinson. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Several weeks ago, Supervisor Sabatier spoke compassionately about his concern that fire victims weren't getting a similar consideration about their tax burdens following fire. And I'm a fire survivor. My economy totally collapsed due to disaster. There was no discount or consideration for me or my economy. In fact, although my property is completely burned and not improved in any way, still has a crushed septic,
Ma'am,
a completely ruined well. My property taxes have now been raised by $40,000. And the amount is above what I
ma'am, we're talking about the cannabis tax
because
structure.
of debt I would owe to clean it up.
Thank you.
No recollection.
Next, Damian Ramirez.
Damian Ramirez from Lake County Grown. I'm in agreement with the proposal set forth by county staff. All three of their recommendations are reasonable suggestions that will have a net positive impact. This is a tremendously difficult time for this new industry, and I applaud staff's efforts in acting in such an efficient and logical manner that takes into consideration the long-term viability of the industry. This industry provides a large stream of revenue, jobs, and overall growth to Lake County. And I feel the board's acceptance of these proposals is imperative for the industry to move forward in a fair and reasonable manner. The decision on reducing the 2021 tax rate by 50% is truly a make or break decision for a large number of cultivators in the county. And taking this long-term approach on this topic will actually create way more tax revenue in the future than any amount previously collected. This reduction will allow many operators to continue their projects, hence keeping their staff employed, maintaining their property values, and netting continuous annual tax revenue for the county for the next decade plus. With that said, I feel it would be most prudent for the board to refrain from finalizing the future cultivation tax rate at this time, as it is much more of a nuanced topic. There are a lot of factors that need to be considered, and we should give the decision the time and respect it deserves. Understanding that the board previously voiced their desire to wait until they had more clarity on what type of tax relief the state is going to enact, I feel it is best to revisit this topic after further information is gathered. I kindly ask the board to vote in agreement on the following: extend the tax due dates to better coincide with product sales for the farmers, reduce the 2021 tax cultivation by 50% to help many farmers survive the volatile negative market swing that occurred. 3, change the taxable area moving forward to be only canopy to coincide with all other counties in the state. I suggest that we take the next month to deeply consider the best option moving forward with future tax rates and find a solution that will be most beneficial for everyone involved. In the meantime, let's get these other proposals voted on, passed, so we can move forward into this growing season with some clarity and momentum for this new industry that has brought a lot of positives into this great county. Thank you, county staff. Thank you, board.
Blair Gue, if you can unmute, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Yes, my name is Blair Gue. The last name is spelled G-U-E. I'm an attorney at Rockaway Law Group, which is a law firm that represents many cannabis cultivators throughout the state, including in Lake County. And first off, I want to echo what many other speakers have said and just applaud the board and county staff for taking the issue of cannabis business tax reform extremely seriously, especially given what the industry is going through right now, and for understanding that unlike some of the comments that we've heard from people that may be opposed to cannabis tax reform on the local level, that cannabis cultivators are truly facing what many call an extinction event. So this is really a matter, I think someone said it great earlier, of taking action now so that there is at least some cannabis industry in Lake County in future years, because we truly are looking at the shutdown of many local farmers, if not the local farmer as we know it, with the current burdens that are on the industry. So I do want to echo the request of the Lake County Cannabis Alliance, which is to immediately reduce the 2021 tax bill for all cultivators by 50%. And then for 2022 to reduce the square footage tax to 15 cents per square foot of canopy, or enact a gross receipts tax of 1%. It's my understanding we're not taking action on the 2022 tax rates or how that will actually be taxed at this meeting, but I hope that the board and staff are open to continuing the conversations about future taxation in the next couple months, so that farmers can know exactly what they're getting into for next year, how they need to prepare, and how they can maintain their businesses in the face of the struggles that the industry is facing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Spencer Andrews, if you can unmute, you have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Spencer Andrews. I'm here today representing Kindness Farm on Manning Road in Lakeport. I'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors for discussing this matter that's vitally important to our local industry. We believe that with relatively modest tax reform, the cannabis industry can continue to bring jobs and economic growth to the region. We therefore respectfully request that the board support a tax reform proposal that, 1, immediately reduces the 2021 tax bill by 50%, and 2, changes the taxable area from cultivation area to canopy area for 2022. Thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you. With that, I will close public input. We'll bring it back to the board and go from there. Supervisor Pyska.
So I deeply appreciate all the conversations we've been having and conversations we've been having with the industry and their input, and the time that we've taken. I think it's been really important and really valuable. We were waiting to see what the state was going to do. We don't know that yet. It's imperative now that we provide this short-term stabilization to the industry for 2021 and 2022. So that's where I'm at right now. We will have that time to further consider other changes once maybe some of the dust has settled at the state, and so much is in the air right now. It is an opportunity to continue this path and working forward to get to a place where our taxation rate can move with the market, because I think that's ultimately where we need to be, and can it can have that flexibility that will build the strength into this industry for the long term. So, I think it's important right now we do this. We can afford to do this. We've had time to do the proper analysis. And also, I'm in favor of changing from cultivation area to canopy.
Any other comments? I had a question for Anita, just briefly. When it comes to this resolution, and one of the thoughts and comments that we had in the last meeting before this was waiting for the state. We obviously know that's going to be like waiting till next year possibly, or whatever. I don't even know when that is. We don't know when that is. But if so, could this resolution be hinged upon that? So we make our changes, and then when they make their changes, we talk about how we go forward from there. I don't know if it's what we vote on today, if that makes sense. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me, but I think the industry needs to understand what the year is going to look like.
Right. No, I want to, what we're going to vote on today is going to be what it is for them for the next, until the state decides. And then when the state decides, we come back and look at what's best for the county from that point. I just wanted to see if that could be something we discuss, or is that something that...
Well, the resolution itself only talks to the tax payments. Yeah. So that have the second installment of the 2021 cannabis cultivation tax payment, and that the new cannabis cultivation tax installment going forward would be January 1 and May 1. So I'm not real clear on, the state probably won't have a great impact on that, but certainly the resolution could be adjusted if it did.
If need be. Well, I'm not concerned with the dates per se, but like those two dates, what I'm concerned about is the 50% and canopy. We're making those to adjust and assist the market and the farmers. However, when the state makes their adjustments, which we're hoping and anticipating that they'll do the same thing, then we can adjust what's best for the county after that, if that makes sense. Because what if the state makes considerable amount of cuts and then we're cutting as well? We need to adjust it where it helps them, but also helps the county. That's all I'm looking at.
Right. Well, and today you're just going to be giving staff direction by consensus, so you can include those concerns and ask staff to address them if that's the will of your board.
Thank you. That's all I was asking. Okay.
But these are temporary because we're only laying this out for this year or last year and this year. So we're going to have that time to take all these things into consideration.
Okay. All right. Supervisor Sabatier?
And I think we mostly know what the state's going to do. Most of the bills aren't completely drastically different. Most of them are looking at elimination or postponement of the cultivation tax. There's talks about putting it back in front of the public, similar to our conversation that we're having as well. So it's going to be an issue of the excise tax, because that's what they're playing with. They keep wanting to be net neutral on what the state is bringing in. So we'll see what it ends up, but I think by October 31st, most likely we'll see something. But we don't know. So I haven't heard anything from anybody talking about January 1st and May 1st, and so since nobody spoke up about that specifically, I'll ignore that part. But I think that the idea of what we're doing, we're going to have this exact same conversation next year after January 1st because of the lack of flexibility. In my opinion, this is not a fix. This is a shot in the dark in hopes that it works with an industry. And while we're here, and I will admit that the way that we're doing things is absolutely incorrect. A flat tax on something that we knew going from illegal to legal would drop. Yes, not as significantly as fast as it did, but that a flat tax was just not a good idea for us to go this way, or for many of the other counties that are doing it that way too. But to continue with just a shot in the dark of what we think might work, and the fact that we're most likely going to be reducing, we're going to be right back at being asked for another reduction. And I think that we need to direct staff to look into a gross receipt as well, to figure out what will that look like and what's that sweet spot, because 1%, I haven't even gotten that close to 1%. I think it needs to be higher than that. 1% would reduce our tax immensely, almost lower than possibly around the $1 to $1.5 million mark with the math that I've done. So I think we just need to look into it, because that is the fix that we need, or else it's just a shot in the dark of what the flat tax is going to do for us. And I think it's just going to bring us back to this same discussion with the same exact arguments being made that it doesn't work for the current status of the industry. It's a way to move forward, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not a fix.
Vice Chair Scott.
I'd just like to thank staff for their work on this, and it sounds like the industry is in agreement with what staff has brought back. So I would like to move forward with what we have here, knowing that, you know, we're going to have to look at this again in the next year. I think we have to lay it out very clear that if the state of California does come back in the next month, as EJ pointed out, this is still the direction we're going to go. I think the industry needs to know what this next year is going to be looking like, that we're not going to be coming back in the month changing our mind again. So I think we need to make that very clear that this is for the next growing season.
Thank you. Supervisor Simon.
So, yeah, I want to thank staff, obviously, too, and the input that do come from the industry, at least in the conversations, to get this to this point. So I don't think there's any silver bullet at this point. Maybe there is down the road, but I would like to move forward with the resolution today, and obviously in support of the 50% reduction for both 21 and 22. And then, obviously, would like to give direction to staff that we do bring it back for the change of the cultivation area to the canopy area, and have those considerations. I did have one question on the cultivation area for the 2022 tax year. As we were talking, is going forward, we know this is conversations that are keep happening. I would put it out there that we do 22 and 23 for the tax years for the taxable canopy area if we make that change.
You say that again?
So it just has 2022 for the change
gotcha.
on the cultivation area, and things take time. We understand that. So instead of 1 year, 2 years, and maybe there's a fix between now and then. But anyway, same conversation of giving us adequate time to make those changes.
All right, and I'll just finish with, of course, thank you, staff, for your work on this. I really, if there's a way to know when the state was going to be finished, I'd be more happy, because I'd be more inclined to make some changes after that. But we're at where we're at. So with that, if there's anyone that wants to entertain a motion or offer the resolution.
I just have a quick question. So on this resolution, it doesn't have the 50% or the canopy, so we're asking for staff to bring back both the 50% and the canopy? Okay, because I had only heard about the canopy, so I just wanted to kind of make sure.
For next one.
And I agree to do that for 2023. It just makes sense.
Noted.
All right. So let's see. So
I offer the resolution.
All right, resolution's been offered.
All right, Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Scott?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
And Supervisor Crandall?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, with that, it is 12:35.
Giving direction to staff to come back.
Yes, we'll give direction to staff to come back with the, more of the information on, is it 50% of the tax? I'm sorry, the canopy and the...
Canopy to
and
cultivation,
the
or
cultivation.
cultivation to canopy.
We'll be back with a resolution to make those changes.
Right.
And for
exactly.
2023 as well, just for clarity, because there has to be a...
2022 and 2023?
Okay, not...
Yes,
Got it.
you have that. Apologize for that.
Well, do we have consensus to also do some long-term planning on, will we have this window for this temporary fix for the other options that we've been talking about?
Yes, I think,
Yes.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think everything needs to be looked at, yes.
And Mr. Chair, for next week's actions, since you all seem pretty solid, would you like that put on the consent agenda, or do you wish to discuss again?
And that is for,
For the reducing the tax rate to 50% for 21, 22, and changing,
I'm okay with that.
I think everybody's
and
okay with
changing
it.
canopy to canopy for 22 and 23. Put it on the consent agenda, or hear comments
We've
again?
had a hefty discussion, too.
Well,
Okay.
you can put it on and we'll see
See how
where it
that
goes from
goes.
there. Yeah.
Do we need a 4/5 because it's a tax, or can 3 votes pass that, knowing that we're going to
Three.
have a missing
Three.
supervisor?
Just 3.
Okay, just making sure.
All right, Supervisor Sabatier?
It slipped.
Okay.
It'll come back.
All right, so we've covered everything on that? All right, apologize one more time for that, moving forward. So now we have, what is it, 6.9 won't be done until 3:30, so we will move on to 7.2, and consideration of Community Project Funding Resolution Middle Creek, California, and Community Project Funding Resolution Middle Creek Flood Damage Reduction and Ecosystem Restoration. And with that, I will hand that off to CEO Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to welcome Assistant CEO Susan Parker into the Zoom. I see her name. Hopefully, we'll see her face in a moment. Or, Susan, are you hearing us?
Administrator Hutchinson, Susan is heading into the board chambers as we speak.
And here she comes. Okay.
She would come in sooner, but she has a, it's blocked.
So, Mr. Chair, as you know, this is follow-up from the discussion. This is follow-up from the discussion your board had last week when you approved the priority project for submittal to Congressman Thompson's office for the new round of earmark funding, and you directed that staff develop an additional project, and so Susan has worked on that and will present this.
Is it on? Great. Good morning.
Good morning.
We did find 2 more projects, and it's related to the Middle Creek project. Thankfully, that project is actually on an eligibility list. So it's really good news for us. So for the Army Corps of Engineers update, that's $1 million. And for the redesign and relocation of 7 transmissions lines, I'm sorry, I ran over, so I'm out of breath.
That's okay.
Don't worry.
Take your time.
That will be $800,000. And there are 2 different subcommittees, so they won't compete. And we will allow, our hope is that we'll let the DC staffers determine who carries or who's going to do the jointly presentation on it. So it's all really good news. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still out of breath. We will, with your permission, we will then submit those requests by this Friday.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, and we already had an email this morning from DC on the Armory asking some follow-up questions, so they're on it.
All right. Vice Chair Scott.
So with that, so we could get more funding than just one project then? Is there a chance?
Yes, well, there's no guarantees, but it is a possibility.
Now, does the Armory sit on a different class than
Yes.
the other two? So all three of them are in
All
different
three
places?
are in different subcommittees.
Okay.
Wow.
So,
Supervisor Sabatier?
I just wanted to share my excitement when I saw this on the agenda. I was happy that we added on to that conversation last time and asked those questions. This is an important project that has a huge ripple effect impact, and so any steps forward that we can take to move it forward entirely is a win in my book, and so thank you very much for bringing this to us.
you're more than welcome.
Thank you for your work on it.
And also, I'd like to thank Scott DeLeon and Marina. After they did their presentation yesterday, I said, let's look into this. I think this would be a viable project, and they came back and said yes.
All right.
So,
Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public? I don't see anybody in the chambers. Anybody on Zoom? No. All right, bring it back to the board for action.
So we'd be offering a resolution?
We have two resolutions.
Two resolutions. All right. So I will offer the first resolution for Middle Creek, California Community Project Funding.
First
I'll offer the
resolution.
resolution.
First resolution's been offered.
All right.
Roll call.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Scott,
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Crandall.
Yay.
Okay. And there's a second one?
And then, yeah,
I'll once again offer the second resolution.
resolution's
All
been
right.
offered.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes. Right back at me.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Scott.
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska.
Yes.
And Supervisor Crandall.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan, very much.
thank you.
Excellent.
Very
Sorry for
exciting.
coming in out of breath.
Oh, no.
Burden and heels.
You had a rush hour.
With that news, you could have walked slow as you wanted. You're good. Thank you. With that, the only thing we have left here is our 6.9, which is scheduled for 3:30. We've covered our non-timed items, and we'll be going into closed session. Should we go into closed session?
Mr. Chair, did you do 7.3, the Lucerne Town Hall?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you
We
did?
did that earlier, yes.
Calendars?
And we did calendars. Yes, we did that in between we did all of them, yeah. Except for 6.9 and closed session.
Yeah, so the recommendation would be, as you know, we had intended for you to be heading off to a press conference with Congressman Thompson. That has been canceled. But you could take a lunch break and then return from your lunch break to complete your closed session.
Right.
And then return to your final timed item at 3:30.
Sounds like a plan.
That's good.
I'm hungry.
All right. With that, we'll recess for a lunch break and be back into closed session at 2 p.m. and then be opening later on at 3:30 for the 6.9.
Should we read closed session now?
I'll read it right now. Closed session, 8.1, public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, interview of interim county administrative officer, appointment of interim county administrative officer. And then 8.2, employee disciplinary appeal, EDA 2201, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. And with that, we will break for lunch. Thank you.
And for any of you that are in Zoom, I would encourage you to leave, and then you can come back into it at 3:30.
Yes.
The Zoom will